Hey everyone, in this video we are reviewing our most recent cruise, which was the 7-day Alaska cruise round trip from Seattle on the Norwegian Bliss. And in this one we are really just reviewing the cruise itself. We have another video that's specifically about the boat, so go check that out. So this cruise included stops in Juneau, Skagway, Ketchikan, and in Victoria, Canada. And obviously it started out in Seattle. And you also got a day cruising through Glacier Bay, where the National Park Service boarded the boat. Most of the rest of this video will be us reviewing the cruise while we're still on the ship, but there will be a few parts, like this one, where we are back on land and talking about a few things that we missed in the video or that we couldn't quite review yet. So check out the timestamps if you're interested in something specific, or feel free to ask us any questions if we miss something. So with that, we'll get into the video with us back on the ship.
We got really lucky, I would say, with going out to our ports because the weather was mostly dry, which is kind of surprising this time of year. We packed all of our rain gear and stuff, but we got lucky with Juneau being pretty dry, also Skagway as well. However, when we got to Ketchikan, it was pouring the entire time.
So in Juneau, we just got off the boat and explored the city. We didn't do any excursion in Juneau. We just got off and walked around. It's a super beautiful little town. Butts up right next to a huge mountain, and it's a beautiful place to explore for the day. Next up was Skagway. This is where we did the White Pass train. And for me, at this point, I was already thinking that this cruise is way worth it because the White Pass train was absolutely beautiful. It goes way farther up the mountain than I expected. It actually made me way more interested in the White Pass, and I didn't even know about what it was. It was such a beautiful train ride, and we went up there and then we walked through Skagway and just checked out the little town. It's a really small little place, but it's a cool place to check out as well. Walk around, check out the train depot. I know a lot of people went out other places and drove into even Canada from there. So there's lots of things to do even when it's a little bit cold.
The next day was Glacier Bay. This was one of the things I was most excited about for our cruise and one of the reasons I think we wanted to do it. Some cruises don't end up stopping at Glacier Bay, so that was one of the reasons why we chose this specific cruise. Like Javi was saying, the National Park Service, they get on a little boat and they come up on our cruise ship and they spend all day. They have presentations, they answer a lot of questions, and they also sell some National Geographic stuff and National Park stuff that you can buy on the ship, which was really fun. Okay, so the first glacier you stop by is the Lamplugh.
Well, it's not for sure. It's like they go to different ones.
They go to different ones? Oh, okay. Sometimes. So that was the one we went by first, and then you stop and spend an hour at the Johns Hopkins Glacier, and that was the huge one and the main one that we saw. So they do a couple 360s. They spin around a few times so everyone can see it. It wasn't even raining, so we got really lucky with the weather, and it was clear, so we had a lucky time seeing the glaciers. And I would say overall that was probably the highlight and one of my favorite things to do.
I was just going to mention on Glacier Bay, so obviously since we were on there during the off-season when it's a little bit chillier, I noticed a lot of people really didn't dress for the weather, and luckily we brought all of our cold gear and we were able to stand out there for hours, where other people only brought hoodies, I assume, because I would see them outside
in jeans.
in like jeans and hoodies or small jackets where, people would come outside and look and then go right back inside. But I think also a lot of people really weren't that interested in seeing Glacier Bay or some of the scenery that we saw, or even really some of the ports. So I'm just saying, if you really want to see the glaciers and you're going in the off season, bring all of your cold gear, because you're going to see the best views outside and everyone's going to be sitting inside, taking up all those spaces. So plan to be outside for a long time and you're going to get the best views of anybody.
Also, we got really, really lucky and we saw 2 orcas. We saw a mama and a baby. So you can still see them even in the off season if you get really lucky.
Right now we're currently headed to Victoria, but we only have about 3 hours in Victoria. I guess it's because they have to stop in Canada to make this an international cruise, but you only get 3 hours, and obviously you don't get that full amount of time because you have to get on before they leave you. So our last stop was in Ketchikan, and we had heard that the last couple cruises on the Bliss had gotten Ketchikan canceled due to weather. So we thought we might get ours canceled, but we didn't, and we got to go into Ketchikan. Well, unfortunately, when we showed up in Ketchikan, the weather was really bad. It was raining really hard, and we decided to still get off the boat. Well, the Bliss stopped in Ward Cove, which is about a 20-minute drive from downtown Ketchikan. So we got in line to get on the free shuttle, and that line took us probably 45 minutes. Unfortunately, by the time we got into the Ketchikan, we were there so early in the morning that most of things were closed. So by the time we really got into town and started walking around, it was almost time for us to start getting back because of how many people had to get back on the shuttles. In the end, Ketchikan was kind of a bust. I think even if we had done a excursion, we really wouldn't have had enough time. That stop, I don't know if I would get off the boat again unless I planned an excursion, which to me, I did hear some feedback from some other guests who did like the salmon bake, and I heard that the salmon bake wasn't that great. There's a lot of people that went to it though, so that could just be a couple people that didn't like it.
Yeah, along with that, I would say a lot of it is kind of weather permitting, and you're kind of taking a chance going in October, this late into the season for Alaska. And we ended up just getting pretty lucky with not having a lot of rain days. It was cold, but it honestly wasn't terrible. But yeah, the rain in Ketchikan was definitely not very fun to stand in, especially with the wind as well. So I think you're kind of taking a chance if you're doing those excursions. Overall, yeah, I would probably say Ketchikan wasn't the best. Still beautiful, but yeah, kind of a bust.
One item that we missed while we were on the boat was talking about getting on the boat. We stayed about 30 minutes from the port near the Seattle airport, and we flew in the night before just to make sure that we didn't have any problems missing flights or having delays that would make us miss our cruise. We decided to stay by the airport just because we were flying in a little bit later. We wouldn't really have time to do much in Seattle, and it was about half the cost for us to stay near the airport versus staying near the port. We Ubered in the morning from the airport area to the port, and it cost us about $60 for the Uber. There was quite a bit of traffic in the morning, but our check-in time wasn't until noon, and overall it was fine taking an Uber into the port area, even though it was really busy once you got to Alaska Way, which is where the boat was parked. Once we got to the cruise port, it's fairly simple to find where to drop your bags, and then get in line for check-in. Check-in took a good while. Overall, it probably took about an hour from when we got in line to when we got on the boat. It seemed like they weren't really ready for that many people, which is surprising because it seemed like they do it every week. They had lines going everywhere and it was a little bit chaotic, but we ended up getting on the boat fine and got checked in for the cruise.
So with the end of the season, it gets a little bit more complicated to plan your time in Alaska. Now, the positive of going end of season is that you get to see some of the fall colors and possibly some snowfall at the higher elevations, depending on what time of year you go. Like we said, we're early October, and we definitely saw some of the fall colors. Downside is a lot of the excursions can get ruined by weather. We didn't really plan to do too much except enjoy the scenery. We were really excited to go see Glacier Bay. Doing a little bit of research, this part of the year is not whale season in Alaska. The whales are going down to Hawaii right now. So they do offer whale watching in this end of season, but as we heard from a lot of the people who went, is it wasn't the greatest experience. And I think it might have just been because there's not too many whales up in this area. So that is the downside to going during this time of year. But I think there are pros and cons to going any time of year.
So another thing with going on a cruise this late into the year, and Alaska especially, we had to bring our big bags because we were packing a lot. We had our coats, we had to bring our boots. And so we definitely had to pack more than for our warmer cruises. So that was another thing that was kind of annoying, was packing a lot of warm things, because it takes a lot of space in your luggage and obviously in your room. So that was another downside, I would say, to going on a cruise so late in the year.
One other thing I want to talk about that we couldn't talk about on the ship because we hadn't done it yet is how the process of getting off the ship went. So we decided to pay for airport transfer because we found out it was $27 each, and we had paid $60 for the Uber coming from the airport. So we thought it would be a little bit easier than fighting for an Uber once we got off the ship. We also found out that we could apply for the port valet, which is a service that the ship checks your bags onto your plane at the Seattle airport. We were approved for that. So the night before disembarkation, we put our bags out and our checked bags were checked onto our plane for us. And so in the morning at 7 a.m., all we had to do was take our carry-on bags and go get on to the charter bus to go to the Seattle airport. Because we had port valet, we didn't have to take any of our big bags and put them on the bus. We just got on with our backpacks and headed to the airport. The nice thing about the charter buses is that they go into a separate entrance at the Seattle airport. They don't go into the main drop-off zone. They take you into the parking garage where you can get off leisurely and you don't have to wait in big lines to get into the airport. Overall, this was probably the easiest experience I've had of getting off a ship and getting checked in for my flight, because I didn't have to haul my bag around and I just didn't have to have my bag at all. So in the future, I hope I get to use this port valet again.
The price is going to vary so much depending on what you buy, the packages you get, what kind of room you got. Obviously, we're in an inside room, so we paid as little as possible. We paid approximately $1,100 each, and that was taxes and everything included. And we booked probably 10 months in advance. Mm-hmm. So everything else pertaining to the ship itself, we have another video talking about everything on the ship, so go check that out. We're just trying to talk about the cruise only, the specific cruise. So hopefully that hits a little bit of some of the questions. And this specific time of year, if you're trying to go in the off season, we were really trying to hit the off season in hopes that the ship wouldn't be full. And surprise to us, the ship is completely full and everyone's forced inside because of how much rain and weather there is. So I think we got a double dose of the ship being full. Our other cruises haven't gone that way. We've gone in the off season and the boat was not full. I think the reason for that is because everyone wanted to see the fall colors, and we definitely saw that. The views on this cruise are worth it, no matter what you have to deal with. And even if you don't do anything crazy on the excursions, I think just being able to see Alaska and this area of the country is way worth it. As always, if you were to try to do this not on a cruise, you would spend so much more money. And yeah, I'd love to go spend more time in these places. And this is a good way to get a little preview of the scenery and the area and decide if you want to go back. Let us know if you have any more questions about this specific cruise. This is on the Norwegian Bliss that we were on, but I think you can get on other ships and do a similar type cruise. Go check out our ship review, and I think we're also going to do a off-season Alaska cruise packing video just to show you what we packed and how to stay warm on the ship.
So thanks again for watching our video, and make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.